Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, Life Chiropractic College West. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 437 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Keith Miller. And if you want to hear us discuss the golden ages of chiropractic, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. It's episode 437. I have Keith Miller coming in from Pennsylvania tonight, and I'm out here in beautiful Grand Junction, Colorado. But before we get into this episode, I always have to let our audience and listeners know the big why. Why do we do what we do with Chiro Hustle? Well, the podcast was established on protecting freedom of speech and adding value to the profession. As I got into learning more about the profession, I said, oh, there's this thing called the sacred trust. Well, we should promote and protect that too, because that's really important. So if you're listening or watching this and you don't know what BJ Palmer's sacred trust is, go to your favorite search engine and find that out. And we do support subluxation-based chiropractic, innate intelligence, and universal intelligence. And if any of those things come off and you're like, what is all this conversation about? These words that I have no idea what they mean. Just go do your favorite search engine and find out what innate intelligence is, universal intelligence is, and subluxation-based chiropractic. With that being said, Dr. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jim. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, we actually talked for 37 minutes before this episode started, so we've warmed up these microphones quite well.
We sure have. It's amazing how many people we know in common.
Yeah, that's just it, is when you do a lot of great work, you attract a lot of great people. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what this profession has been founded upon. And you were telling me that you just presented Lou Sportelli his Lifetime Achievement Award recently. And I was like, well, who's the next ones? So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. Maybe we won't. But this interview is more focused on you, the practitioner. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about the future of this profession, or how people should be more involved with their state associations and their national associations, and why that really matters, and why it matters to step in and support and lead. And I know you're doing that out there in Pennsylvania. So your story, just to give you a baseline, your friends, your family, your colleagues, the state association people, everybody's going to hear this story, and maybe they might know who you are, but after 22 years of practice, they might not have heard it for quite some time. So let's reintroduce you to our audience and to your collective, and tell them how you got into the profession and what you're up to today.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, it's a kind of one of those crazy stories where I was a fencer. I know fencing nowadays is becoming a little more mainstream thanks to social media and the internet. But in those days, it really wasn't as much. And I was pretty good at my sport. I was top of my game in New Jersey. I went to Rutgers. I was Division I at Rutgers for fencing. And I did quite well. I was an Epee, for anyone out there who knows what that means. But at the end of my junior season, I blew my back out. And I was on my way doing the allopathic model. I don't know about all of you, but I have a wonderful set of parents who pushed me and my brothers really hard. And from, I think, the moment we could walk, our parents told us, like, you're going to be doctors. You all want to be doctors. They did pretty good. I guess they got 2 out of 3. So they did something right. But I was always very, kind of working down that path to allopathic medical school. I was volunteering at hospitals. I was working as a scrub tech in one hospital. I kind of had the whole mindset. And when I hurt myself, I went through that model. And I went first to the trainers. And in those days, I was in really great shape. I trained 7 days a week. I was either in the gym or I was running or I was training for my craft. And all of a sudden, that came to a screeching halt. The first step everyone tells you when your back is bad, especially when you're 21, is how strong is your core? Well, in those days, you could have washed clothes on my core. I mean, I don't know how much better it could have gotten. And my mom's like, have you ever tried going to a chiropractor? And I was like, I'm not going to a chiropractor. There's no way I'm going to a chiropractor. They're a bunch of voodoo shaman who cut chicken heads off and shake blood, and they dance around in circles and they cast some spells. I'm not going to go. And time went by and I wasn't getting better. And time went by and I wasn't getting better. And I don't know about your mom, but my mom will, passive aggressively just kind of stay at you as a mom, a good mom does. And little by little, I finally said, fine, mom, I'll try a chiropractor. I don't think it's going to help. I don't think it's going to work, but I'm going to go to a chiropractor just because I want you to stop telling me to go to a chiropractor. I went to see Bob Berkowitz in Highland Park, New Jersey, who's very involved at Sherman. And I got there the first day and he was trying to explain to me what he was going to do and everything else. And I kind of did the look, I don't really know why I'm here, but I'm just here because. And, Bob was real patient and he told me the story. And I didn't really listen. But in 2 weeks, I was better than I'd been in years. Not only was I feeling better, not only was my flexibility better, but I had all sorts of allergy problems that had plagued me my whole life. I all of a sudden was feeling better. I had headaches as long as I could remember that came and went. In a few weeks, they were better. And the proof is kind of in the pudding. No matter where you are, no matter where you think if you're awake and you're open and honest to the universe and you're listening, it's pretty hard when you're hit in the face with a train of something different than your thought. And I then eventually graduated from Rutgers with honors, and I was accepted into med school. I was going to go to Robert Wood Johnson in New Jersey, UMDNJ. And I decided for the first time after work, to defer a year. And I deferred a year and I didn't go. And they, blessed me with saying, that's okay. You can take a year to figure out what you want to do. And I, instead of doing all the volunteer work and the whole allopathic field, I went and visited chiropractors. Very similar to you. You probably have seen more chiropractors in their environment than anybody. But, I went to different offices and I saw different flavors. It was like Baskin Robbins in the beginning. You got to figure out what you like. Is it rum raisin? Is it vanilla? And after I went to enough chiropractors, a lot of the doctors I was volunteering with or working with kind of didn't like their job. And every chiropractic office I went to, everybody was happy. Their patients were happy. People were hugging them. People were coming in, talking about how it changed their life. I went to a lot of doctors' offices and saw a lot of crazy stuff. I was in a surgery tech. I didn't see patients doing that. And it really kind of made me sit up and take notice. And I started visiting chiropractic schools next. First, I went up north. It was way too cold. Then I went down to Sherman. It just kind of wasn't my vibe. And then I wound up at Life. And I graduated from Life spring of 2000. It's the largest graduating class that I know of before, since, or after. And I met some really great people. A lot of those people are leaders in the profession today. And that's kind of how I got to where I am now. And I look back 20 plus years later, and it was an amazing journey. I'm really thankful for getting here. And thank you, Mom, for listening to this, for nagging me, or I wouldn't be on this podcast right now.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear each practitioner's story step by step. And for me, it's an honor to have you on the show, to have you tell your story, because, going to seminars over the past 10 years, one of the things that you hear from the stage, there's never a better time to be a chiropractor, and tell the story. Mm-hmm. And I think that those things are a very common thread in chiropractic, but also the other common thread that you talked about that I think that a lot of people don't understand as well is it's not about feeling better. It's about healing better. And when you're a young man and you're so pushed back, and then you finally realize that getting chiropractic adjustments were the thing that helped you heal better, not just feel better, but you started to realize there was a cascade effect that life was just improving. And it didn't matter how fit you were. It didn't matter what you looked like in a mirror. It mattered how you were healing. And that's the real beautiful thing about chiropractic. And that's why when you got to see that doc, that they were able to explain to you that this is the reason why chiropractic is unique, distinct, and non-obvious when it comes to a healing art. And a lot of times people don't even know that chiropractic is a healing art, science, philosophy, and art. And that's really the baseline of chiropractic. And now we have to understand techniques and practice styles and all these different things. But when it comes down to it, patients come in for one thing. They want to find a practitioner that they can trust and that will actually deliver the goods. And I think that that's what makes chiropractic so amazing.
And one of the things that I like to do in my office, because I realized that my journey went from this is complete nonsense to this has changed my life to, man, I got to go do this. I try to kind of find patients in the same space. You know, it's easy when I get the patient that, you know, Mary, who's a great patient, and she refers someone. By the time the patient comes in, they're like, Mary told me you're going to change my life and you were amazing, blah, blah, blah. We love those patients. I mean, those are the best. But it's kind of my way of paying it forward when I get the crappy patients, the ones that were like me when I first walked in the door, who didn't want to hear it, who wasn't even sure why they were there. I mean, that's really the, you know, when you're talking about those like big life-changing patients, you know, a lot of times people talk about the miracles of the person that they healed a certain way. I always find the miracle is the person that you got into the office who didn't want to be there, who now goes and sends you 2 patients in 6 months. That's the real miracle.
Yeah, and that's the subluxation that we all talk about through the spinal column. Those are real, but the bigger subluxation is the one above the atlas, and that's between the 2 temples. And if you can get through that subluxation, the thoughts, then you can fix the traumas and toxins. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times people think that the only subluxations come from pain, and they're from, you know, an injury or some type of an accident. But a lot of times the best patients long term are the ones that you actually help them with their mental subluxations, and you help them rewire the above atlas subluxation. And I think that that's what you basically why you became a chiropractor, because you had to get through the gray matter before you could get to the spinal cord. And yeah, there's a lot to be said about that. And then, you know, one of the things about marketing is you're talking about this referral based system now. And there's nothing greater in chiropractic than to get 3 things: get them to stay, get them to pay, and get them to refer. And if you can build a practice like that, I mean, like you said, you don't even really have to do marketing anymore after 22 years of practice. You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, Life Chiropractic College West. Let's hustle.
Yeah, and it's really a privilege. Like we talked about during our warm up. I remember the days when I would be at the health fairs, and I'd be at I did lunch and learns at some of the big pharmas in my area, because in Pennsylvania we're in Pharma Alley. So I'd be going into big pharmas. They would have me sit down and do like lunch and learns for their people to talk about topics. And here I was, a chiropractor, trying to talk to them about all the things of why they shouldn't want to take drugs, like in their lunchroom at the big pharma. And I always found that ironic, but what was even more ironic is when you'd actually capture a few of those patients to come out of there. And it's amazing how many of those talks you do and how many people you talk to, and little by little you refine that message clearer and better and sharper. You know, a lot of people call it the elevator speech, you know, that 30 seconds to a minute. That's all you got. if you don't connect to that patient, if you don't tell them the story, if you don't get them to say, wow, I want to hear more, wow, that's an interesting idea, in under a minute, you're done. And that's the one thing that a lot of people don't necessarily learn, because when you're seeing your patients and you're in a busy practice, you don't have a lot of time to make that message. And that message has got to be sharp and clear, and it's got to resonate.
Well, the other part of what you're saying there is that, people, it doesn't matter what industry they work in, they want to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't matter if they're selling cars or they're selling pills. They want to have a higher quality of life, and they're going to go to wherever they get that. And if that's the chiropractor, they might not tell their friends and family so much because of the industry that they've chosen to work in, but they're going to show up. And that's the thing, is even the top dog politicians out there, they might not push for agenda for chiropractic, but they're getting adjusted.
That is very, very true.
So let's talk about that a little bit. I know that we wanted to kind of customize this conversation a little bit to people that are in the profession, supporting the profession from inside. So let's talk a little bit about why it's so important for people that are practicing in states to support their local state associations.
Well, one of the things I hear a lot lately is that this is the golden age to practice. And it really is. I mean, all you got to do is flip on TikTok and you could, see how mainstream that chiropractor has gotten just by the number of views that people are, watching on chiropractors practicing. Now, we could have conversations of whether, people think it's good or it's bad and what it says, but fact of the matter, it's out there. And a lot of people think that, like, we're good now. It's on autopilot. We could just sit back and we don't have to do anything. And somewhere along the way, I think people forgot that it wasn't that long ago chiropractors were going to jail for what we did. I remember there's a quote, and I'm going to quote it wrong. Please, someone don't send me an email later and tell me how wrong my quote was. But D.D. Palmer, and I think it was like in the early 1900s, said something along the lines of he went to jail, and shortly after he got in jail, he started getting phone calls and people calling him, lending money or offering to pay his fines for him to get out. And the quote is something like, I'm not in my cell block for my lack of principle, but my abundance of principle. And what that means is that, here's a guy who was willing to fight and sacrifice for what he thought was important and what he believed in. And somewhere along the way, as a profession, nationally, we're seeing a reduced number of people getting involved in their state and national associations. When you look at New Jersey as a good example, a few years ago, you could have lost your license for telling a patient to drink water or take a multivitamin. And then it got worse when a rogue judge decided that chiropractors in New Jersey could no longer manipulate, adjust, treat, whatever you want to call it. You couldn't touch an extremity. You were spine only all of a sudden. And all of a sudden, all these people who were working on shoulders or knees or whatever else the problem was, because it was a sublux joint and it was part of the larger subluxation complex, all of a sudden couldn't do it. And the states, associations, there's two at the time, they came together. There's one association now speaking with one voice. They changed their scope of practice. And thank God they updated and modernized their scope of practice to protect and defend their profession and their scope. We saw that happen in other states where there was challenges. New York, Michigan. The largest one was in Texas. We spoke about this earlier in our pregame, but a lot of people kind of talk about Texas saying, well, that started because a couple chiropractors were doing vestibular exams and electrovestibular testing, and that wasn't necessarily 100% chiropractic. And yeah, I get where some people would say that. But the Texas Medical Association, who went after those chiropractors, who made a big fuss of that case, they didn't care which chiropractor they went after. They didn't care what the issue was. They were just looking to find a test case. They were just throwing chum in the water to see what could stick. And when you look at what the case was about and you actually read the testimony to see what happened over that 10 years, what it came down to is the Texas Medical Association wanted to say that chiropractors were not able to diagnose anything, that we really were unable to diagnose, know things that are going on patients, and therefore we really need to have oversight of what we did. That the MD and DO community needs to first see the patient, establish what's wrong with them, determine whether or not they think that that patient should and benefit from a chiropractor, then send them over and manage the case. That's really what it came down to. And the nitty-gritty of the details of how it got there doesn't matter. But we were this close to seeing one of the largest states in the nation wind up losing primary access of a patient walking in their door, and that chiropractor autonomously, regardless of what your method and detection of subluxation, correction of vertebral analysis was, be it activator, Gonstead, diversified, CVP, it didn't matter. You weren't allowed to see them if they won, because you needed to go through their model and their gatekeeper model. If it wasn't for the Texas Chiropractic Association, that domino would have fallen. And it wouldn't be long before 49 states were under the heel. And I always make the joke that we would have been glorified massage therapists, except for the fact that the whole system likes massage therapists a lot better than chiropractors as a whole, because they're part of that system more. So, chiropractic really was on the precipice of being snuffed out. And a lot of people sit around thinking that, it's the golden age now. Things are great. They're graduating from school. They can go out and practice. They can start cash practices, insurance practices. They could do whatever they want. They can make TikTok videos. But at the end of the day, we are always one step away from being extinct. One of the analogies I love, if you've ever seen the first Men in Black movie, when Will Smith, first goes down in the elevator and he's walking around, he's looking at all the aliens, and he's completely perplexed. And all of a sudden, this video monitor comes on, and all these alarms start going off, and there's this battle cruiser out there, and he's like, "Oh my God, they're gonna blow up the earth! They're gonna blow up the earth!" And the Men in Black guy turns to him and says, there's always a battle cruiser out there. There's always someone out there. You just don't know about it. And the reason you don't know about it is because of the Men in Black. Well, your state associations and your national associations are your Men in Black. They're the ones that when you're sleeping and you're practicing and you're, like you said, the 3 reasons that you're there, get them to come, get them to pay, get them to refer, get them. When people are doing that, there's volunteers out there standing on the battle zone. They're standing on that wall. They're like, I'll go another movie analogy. It's like Game of Thrones, when the crows are standing on the wall looking out into the ice. There are people out there. Now, I know that some people like the ICA better. Some people like the ACA better. I don't really care which one you like. Pick one, send your money to them. If you don't like that they're doing it this way or that way, or they're not speaking exactly from your voice, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. They're not going to always agree 100% of what you like. They're not going to always be there. But if they're not there standing on that wall, you will not be able to practice as a chiropractor in the future. Someone is always out there gunning to take away what we got. They don't like our special sauce. They don't like us telling people that drugs are not the answer, that surgery is not the answer, that health comes from within. They don't like telling us that, maybe you should eat better. Maybe you should take some vitamins. Maybe you should lay off the Oreos if you're afraid that COVID's going to get you. They don't like us telling people that. And there's always someone out there looking to steal our thunder, looking to knock us back, and looking to control our message and take away our voice and our freedom. But you can't do that. A single doctor can't do anything. And there's 50 states with 50 states of licensure. And how did that happen? Chiropractors banded together back in the good old days. And they banded together and they created associations. Now, some of those associations still exist. Some of them have morphed into other ones or have blended, or, like in New Jersey where 2 came together. Pennsylvania still has 2 unique associations. I know Florida's got like 4. But it doesn't matter which you join. Join one. Find the one that speaks to your voice. Find the one that you think is doing what is going to do it. But you got to support someone. In most associations, they run you about $50 a month. It's literally one adjustment or 2/3 of an adjustment in some offices a month. You pay malpractice insurance. We all pay malpractice insurance. Most of us are never going to get sued in a lifetime. In fact, we're the safest provider out there. We have the lowest malpractice. Some of us have malpractice insurance lower than what we pay for our cars. That's how safe what we do is. That's how little we need that insurance. You have to have it. God forbid you don't have it. It's the one day you're going to need it. It's like an umbrella. The one day you don't have it, it's going to rain. But the fact of the matter is that the most important practice insurance you have is that state association and the national association protecting and defending your rights. And we hear from members all the time, well, I don't join because you don't do enough to get my reimbursement up for insurance carriers. And then 3 days later, well, I'm not going to join because I'm cash practice and you do too much to help and fight with those insurance carriers. You don't speak to what I do. Once again, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. At the end of the day, we need to have some kind of unity. We need to do that. Your dues support that army that protects you. The volunteers are out there doing it. I'm the president of my state association. We have roughly 4,000 chiropractors in our state. I'm proud to be elected to serve that constituency. But we need more. We need more people who pay their dues. And more importantly, we need more volunteers. We're getting ready to update our scope of practice in Pennsylvania. We had our own legal challenge. A few years ago, a practitioner, just like in Texas, they found a test case and they went after a practitioner for certain types of exercise he was doing in their office. We won. We won the case and they took it to appeal. And we won and they took it to appeal. And we lost on the final appeal at the highest level state court, where a rogue judge reinvented and reimagined what our scope of practice looked like. We've been doing it that way since the 1970s, when our scope was written, was updated briefly in the 80s. But we've been doing it that way. Nobody was getting hurt. Nobody was filing complaints with the Department of Health or the Department of Insurance. People weren't getting sued because of what was going on. But the insurance carrier decided that they didn't want exercise happening the way it was, and we lost the right to do certain types of exercise in our office because of a rogue judge. Oh, we're now having to rewrite our scope of practice because of it. And the only way that we're going to defend our scope of practice is people getting involved. We need your money. We need your volunteerism. We need you reaching out to that politician down the street from you and making friends. We need to, once again, circle the wagons and stop shooting inwards. Too often I see chiropractors trying to find a reason for the guy down the street to be different. It was straights and mixers back in the day. Now it's like tours and metapractors. Everybody's trying to find some reason to divide us amongst ourselves. At the end of the day, we're all chiropractors. That hospital down the street that doesn't like a chiropractor, they don't care how you practice or what you call yourself. You're a DC. When they come after your license and they challenge your scope of practice, they don't care what you call yourself. You're still a DC. So my pitch to everyone listening to this, and thank you, Jim, so much for giving me this voice to put that out there. I want everyone out there to look into finding some place. If you love your profession, if the profession has done great things, if it's helped you pay off those goddamn student loans, if it's helped you buy the house with your spouse and build the dream life you have, and to raise your children and put your kids through college, and you've helped hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of people through chiropractic, and chiropractic has been good to you, your community, and to your family. The way you give back is making sure that you defend your profession today so it'll be there for the profession of the future. And if people like DD didn't go to jail for me in the early 1900s and stand by his abundance of principle and not just roll over and say, well, I'm making money, I'll make it someone else's problem. If people didn't sacrifice their personal freedoms and their time to ensure and enshrine that profession, I wouldn't be here today, and I sure as hell wouldn't be talking to you today, Jim.
Well, you said a lot there, and I'm just gonna repackage and close out with some statements here. And I do have that D.D. Palmer quote right in front of me. When asked why he didn't just pay the fine, D.D. responded, "I'm not in a cell for lack of principle, but for an abundance of principle." Palmer was practicing chiropractic, not medicine. So they locked him up for practicing medicine without a license. So he would not bail himself out, and he would not get out of jail based on those premises, because he said that he was practicing chiropractic and not medicine. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, you are standing on the shoulders of giants, and we all are with this profession. I've heard that a lot too. And there are 3 ways that people can give to their state associations or their national associations, as you mentioned. I'll just repackage it a little different. You can give with your time, you can give with your talent, or you can give with your treasure. And all are very valuable. So look at how you can build resources amongst yourself. And you said something else is there's an idea, and it's true, that chiropractors all do it a little bit differently. And I call that unity through diversity. And there needs to be more brothers and sisters in arms rather than saying what the other person doesn't do the way that you do it. Because there's a lot of truth that every chiropractor is an artist, and every chiropractor is going to do their art the way that they see fit, which they should do because they're doctors of chiropractic, which I think makes it really special and unique when you find somebody that you love and trust to be your chiropractor. And then last, there's a Bob Marley quote that I really love, and it more than anything shines a spotlight on you, Dr. Keith, is why would I take a day off because the bad guys never do? And I think that that's really true about being in leadership for a state association is, like you said, the men in black stuff is the bad guys don't take days off. So why should the good guys? And if we're going to be the good guys on the side of history that wins and that pushes back all the dogma to discredit and eliminate chiropractic, then we have to stand up very proud and say why we do what we do, who it's for, and we have to be supportive of other people within this profession rather than say we're more alike than we are different. And I think that with all that said, I know that there was a huge question set that we had out there. Maybe we'll get you on for another show in the future. But I want to thank you for being our guest today on Chiro Hustle, episode 437. If people do want to support you and they want to either give their time, their talent, or their treasure, what resources can we send people to?
If you want to shoot me an email, that's probably the easiest way to get me. It's drmiller@drspine.net. Dr. Miller@drspine.net. I have Instagrams and everything else, but honestly, as my kids tell me, I'm an old school Facebook guy, and that makes me old.
Yeah, we do hang out in the dinosaur circles. So if people are interested in supporting the Pennsylvania State Association, where can we send them to as a web resource?
Penn Chiro, PENN Chiro.org. That's the Pennsylvania Chiropractic Association's website. But everyone out there, there's 49 other states. If you don't know what your state association does, Google. It's a wonderful tool. You can find your state association. If you're not sure if they speak to you, call them up. I'm sure there's someone in leadership who would be glad to get on a phone call and tell you what they do. If you're not sure if that message resonates with you, there might be more than one association in your state. It doesn't matter what you support, but support someone. If you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing.
You're absolutely right. Well, thank you for being on our show tonight. I want you to have a wonderful rest of your evening out there in Pennsylvania. And I look forward to the next opportunity that we get to speak together, and look forward to the day we get to meet.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate the time today and the opportunity.
Yeah, it's my honor. And I'll close out by telling you, you're just one story away. Keep hustling. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.